So, forgive me, no, but being very direct, but just to go back and answer the questions of my colleagues in LP, will this bill allow same-sex marriage? And I hope somebody can, from the Honorable, will it allow same-sex marriage? Can you categorically say? Because it's very clear.
Yes, it's not allow same-sex marriage.
How come?
In fact, just like the bill, you also put in the basic principles, maybe in the amendment, in the enrichment of the law, is to state that this bill doesn't provide provision.
No, it's just that so many of your, what you define as the discriminatory practice, discriminatory practices, are quite broad, vague, and it allows many interpretations. Right, kami, you've been bouncing off, ay, pwede pa ito. So you're saying same-sex is not allowed, and yet, if you look at your section, and I'm sure you know the section that we're talking about all these clearances and ganyan, it's open. It's very open to be misinterpreted. When we're all dead and gone, somebody would read this and say, pwede. You know, I can go and say, pwede siya. You also have this thing about denying the person access to facilities and services, etc. Here is a case in point. I work in an ad agency, and in an ad agency, as you know, people come dressed however they want because that's their self-expression, and we allow them to. It also happened in the office wherein biologically male, pero naka-fully made up, dun siya nag-CR, sa banyo ng babae. To me, that's fine. But I had another lady who really felt her sensitivities were being violated and her privacy. Sabi niya, kahit nakababae yan, yung, of course she said it in vernacular, you know, his genitals are still soaked. So, whose rights are being violated? Whose sensitivities take precedence on this? So, can you clarify this? Because again, it says here, you cannot deny access to the establishments, facilities, utilities. And yet these are things that happen po in real life. Same with the MRT. O sige, ako gay, so dun ako sa women's section kasi walang tao. Ako lesbian, sorry, dun ako sa male. Kung ako bisexual, depending on the day, I can go either way. Hindi ba medyo confusing po? So, you know when you make a law, you really have to test it by bringing it down to very practical ways to implement it. You know, I used to be a hiring manager. In marketing, I used to be a hiring manager also for Unilever. And in hiring, of course you have to check on gender. You have to, because as you defined here, no, gender orientation, as you said, it's very subjective. It's attitudes, diba? It's feelings, and yun din yung definition ng WHO. Yun din ang definition ng American Psychological Society. It's very much socially constructed goals. Different from sex orientation. Sex orientation is talagang biological. Male, female, females menstruate, males have queens. It's very clear. So whichever society, pare-pareho yan. Pagdating sa, when you say gender identity, because it's socially constructed roles, it may change. Diba? And there are feelings and, as I said, just within my relation, iba yung attitude ng iba. They're all called, within the LGBT, if you do recognize it as well, but sa kanila, they even refuse to acknowledge bakit siya ganyan, hindi dapat yun. So, I think to former Congressman's point, there is no definition eh. We don't really know who they are. It is a moving target. So how then do you say you're being discriminated against? I am the fairness of the wood. So it really requires a lot more clarification. You know, even your definition. There was a definition here, but I was just reading it, and it was just, should be understood to imply distinction, exclusion, blah, blah, blah. Whether actual or perceived. There's a phrase here, whether actual or perceived. The question is, perceived by whom? Society or the person or who? And then your last line, if I may read, no? Shall be understood to imply any distinction, exclusion, restriction, or preference which is based on any grounds such as sex, blah, 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 whether actual or perceived, and which has the purpose or effect of nullifying, impairing the recognition, access to enjoyment, exercise by all persons of an equal footing. Hindi namin natindihan yung equal footing ngayon, of all rights and freedom. And you know, the first example I thought, which was my first cousin, gumastos siya ng limpak-limpak. Maganda siya. In fact, yung sabi ng tita ko, mas makinis pa siya kaysa sa lahat kayong babaeng magkikita. Tall, beautiful, etc. So, on equal footing na siya. How she talks like a woman, acts like a woman, forget about the XY chromosomes that are in him. Pero, for all intents and purposes, parang siya equal footing sa amin. So, ibig sabihin, kung lumapit siya kay Stella Marquez to say, pwede na rin ako sumali ng Binibining Pilipinas because equal footing, as I perceive it, perhaps Stella Marquez doesn't perceive it so, but if this person perceives it as so, who makes that judgment? So can they be refused access because gumastos sila, so they don't have access? And so that's what it takes for. If I read it, parang sabi ko, so ganun ba yun? So, hindi na siya pwedeng disqualify. Kung nanalo siya, tapos yung pala, hindi pa siya talagang female. And it's really quite, ako personally, I find it insulting in that case. You know, even in terms of hiring, as I said, in the ad agency, people come and they cross-dress. Now, in terms of hiring, if I were a preschool teacher, and a male teacher, feminine orientation, decides to be on equal footing with his female counterpart and wants to wear the female uniform, fully made up, jeweled up, stylized, glamorized, and enters the preschool. Okay ba yun to be on equal footing? And if parents object, will they be considered as a unlawful parent who wants to exercise their discretion? You know, parang I don't want to expose the child to this to be disoriented on what really is male and female. Another point that's really quite relevant to me is this thing about, we know, I guess there's so many studies on what causes homosexuality. And the concern of my son, who first was very confused, of course I brought him to a psychologist, a family counselor, find out where the problem is, etc., etc. If I understand again your there is a clause here as far as what parents should do. Parang yung sinasabi ko dito, that's unlawful. I have to go to a family court. Ano po yung family court niyon? Dapat pumasok si Soljen. Bakit papasok yung abogado na wala namang kaso? Diba? It's not a case. He needs psychological help. And in fact, there was a doctor from Johns Hopkins who even said 70 to 80% of children who have these homosexual tendencies, you know, these are fleeting emotions that disappear after the age of 15. I know, but can I just end by saying, there are just, my conclusion is just, they are really concrete, practical, clarificatory questions that need to be answered. And as you said, first the same-sex attraction, the second is also how it flips and abrogates the rights of parents. So please clarify also, and make it very categorical. In fact, if this is not an anti-discrimination law and it's same-sex marriage, say it so we can have a more profound discussion on this subject. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe we have already submitted your position paper, and we will take that into consideration. And now call Ms. Nikki Castillo of the Labor Rights Project of Lagapag, Managing Director.
Good afternoon, Honorable Female Leader. I'd just like to correct the organization that belongs to the Labor Rights Project. Lagapag is a separate organization. Sorry. I'm the Managing Director of Labor Rights Project. First of all, we'd like to thank Honorable Female Leader and the Commission on Women and Gender Equality for inviting labor rights to this committee hearing, and also we would like to thank the technical working group for all of the work that they put into this which we believe very adequately echoes the intentions of all the authors who created the bills. At Brain Rights Project, we were the leading researcher for a research on violence against lesbian, bisexual, and transgender women in the Philippines. Part of the reason why we embarked on this research along with 5 other countries in Asia, Japan, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, is because we are always asked by those we interact with, where are your stories or your documentations that this kind of discrimination and violence exists? You can live a perfect life, and all of these stereotypes that we're always told. That's why we cannot claim rights that are claimed by other people in the Philippines or in the world. In our research, we found that there are alarmingly several manifestations of violence that lesbians, bisexual, and transgender women in the Philippines experience. They range from physical violence, verbal and emotional, violence in schools, sexual violence, and violence in the name of religion. And another layer altogether is the different spheres of discrimination. So it's not just in one area where lesbians, bisexual, and transgender women in the Philippines experience discrimination and violence. They experience it in state government offices, in health institutions, in kind of health provider, in the workplace, in schools again, in strangers, most of which are unprovoked. And most alarmingly, the violence and discrimination starts in the family. And I'm sure you will hear from other resource persons from the LGBT community who will echo these same spheres of violence and discrimination, where it starts in the family, and the most pronounced and worst cases are in the family. One such example is a respondent. Her name was Jelai. When she was 8 years old, she started living her life as a girl. She was born male, but she decided when she was grade 3 that no, I am not comfortable living with the gender that society has imposed on me. So she started living her life as a girl, and her parents fully supported her for it. But during that same year, her uncle, who was 20-year-old at that time, took it upon himself to correct this truth of hers. Jella told us, and I'm shaking right now because this is a really emotional story, that she was after school she was taken to her room by her uncle, and there she was repeatedly abused sexually to a point where she sustained a lot of bodily injuries. It was bloody, and her mother came. They brought her to the hospital, and she heard when they were doing her medical legal, ginusto niya kasi yan eh, bakla kasi siya. So, linandi niya kasi ako. She was 8 years old. Lalandiin niya yung uncle niya, 20 years old. She deserved it because she was bakla. This is the same sort of arguments that we hear from in cases of rape, where people would say, well, you deserved it because you dressed that way. It's an old argument, but and a lot of people have voiced their arguments that victim blaming is just does not hold human rights standards at all. But surprisingly, we find it all the time in our research and the research of our other colleagues who are disabled, and those of other people in other places in the Philippines who have done similar, maybe not as organized research, but with their work in the community. This kind of discrimination exists, and that is the only reason why we're asking for such a law, a bill, to be enacted in the Philippines. At this point, and I'd like to keep short because I'm sure there are other people who would love to say other things. The stand of rainbow rights is to just support this version of of the Anti-Soviet Discrimination Act. And to reiterate that we are not asking for any special rights. All that we are asking for and all that this bill is asking for is that persons of diverse sexual orientation, gender identity, which includes lesbians, bisexuals, transgender women and men, gay men, and heterosexual people, that they all be afforded the same kind of rights and protection from discrimination that everybody else in the Philippines should be experiencing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe now we hear from Bishop Ruben Amati of Lighthouse Bible Baptist Church.
Magandang hapon po, Madam Chair, at magandang hapon po sa lahat ng miyembro ng ating batasan at sa lahat ng mga bisita. Ako po si Bishop Ruben Amati. I am the Senior Pastor of the Lighthouse Bible Baptist Church. At gayon din ay nire-represent ako ang Bible Believers League for Morality and Democracy. At sa pagkakataon din po ito, dahil ako'y papunta rito kanina, nag-text sa akin si Bishop Tendero ng PCEC. At ang PCEC po ay ang pinakamalaking aggregation ng mga ebangheliko sa Pilipinas. At sinasabi niya na kung maaari ay express ko rin ang aming sentimento bilang PCEC. So yun po ang aking ginagawa sa hapon ito. Sa ganang amin po, bilang mga mananampalatayang naniniwala sa banal na kasulatan, or we call ourselves the Bible-believing Christians, ay sinasabi po namin na wala na pong pangangailangan para sa ganitong bill o batas. At meron kami ilang mga dahilan kung bakit namin sinasabi yan. Una-una ay para kung ito inuutan natin yung carriage doon sa kabayo. Una-una kasi wala pa tayong batas na talagang nagbibigay po ng pagkilala sa orientasyon ng mga kalalakihan na sinasabi natin Soviet. Wala pong batas na talagang nagbibigay sa kanila ng isang class ng mga mamamayan. Kung kaya, ay hindi rin natin masasabi na paano natin sila bibigyan ng proteksyon o kaya naman paano natin i-discriminate sila na hindi naman legally nag-i-exist ng ganong klase. Kung meron man pong discrimination na ilalagay natin bilang batas, liwanagin na muna natin na nag-i-exist po sila lawfully. Kaya nga po sa amin, parang nauna yata yung parawahe doon sa kabayo. So liwanagin na muna natin. Dahil kung nag-i-create po tayo dito ng hindi po magandang direksyon. Ano po? So, tama po. Sumasang-ayon kami sa sinabi ni Araneta, Congressman kanina, na yun po ang dapat liwanagin natin. Ikalawa, para sa amin po sapat na ang ating konstitusyon, ang saligang batas. At mga ilang batas natin tungkol sa proteksyon ng mga kababaihan, yung gender equality, kahit na yung pagkilala sa mga people with disabilities. Para sa amin, sapat na po yun. Lalo na ang ating konstitusyon, ang pinag-uusapan natin ay karapatang pantao. Mas maganda pong sabihin kasi sa Tagalog, dahil kung English ang sasabihin natin, we refer to man. Sa baris Tagalog, karapatang pantao. Lahat na po tayo dito tao. Kaya sa lalaki o babae, tao po. Ang ginagawa po ng ating saligang batas ay binibigyan tayo ng respeto at pagkilala bilang tao. Okay? At ibig sabihin, kung tayo mag-discriminate sa isa, ay parang insulto nyo sa kanya bilang tao. Yun po ang dapat natin itaas. Turuan natin ang ating mga kababayan na rumespeto at kumilala sa mga tao. Ano man ang kanilang orientasyon, ano man ang kanilang ugali, ano man ang kanilang itsura, ano man ang kanilang katatayuan, respetuhin natin sila sapagkat sila ay tao. Pag bibigyan po natin ng daan itong bill na ito, parang tayong gumagawa ng isang kategorya na mas mataas pa sa tao. Okay? Para bang, uy, teka muna ako. Wag mo akong kilala bilang tao. Ako ay isang transgender. Mas mataas sa tao yun. Eh, hindi po ba una dapat natin kilala? Tao sila, kaya natin dapat sila igalang at huwag natin i-discriminate. Eh, baka ako gagawa tayo ng precedence dito. Ako po'y tanda. Maliit ako. Baka kailangan mag-propose din ako ng bill para yung mga tanda, eh gusto ko maging basketball player. Oh, hindi gano'n na rin. Halimbawa, eh tao din ako. Hindi ko maramdaman na tao ko dahil ang tingin sa akin parang hindi ko tao ako. So, nagiging precedence ko ito sa iba. Ang ituro po natin sa ating mga kababayan ay gumalang bilang tao. Sapagkat yun na po yun eh. Yun ang ating batas. Yun ang ating saligang batas. Kaya po, isang pagpapamahil ko yun, wala daw magsalita. Subalit, maigit, ako'y nagpapasalamat na binigyan niyo ako ng isang pagkakataon ganito. Ngayon po, ikatlo, tayo po mga Pilipino ay dinala po tayo rito bilang napaka-accommodating po natin mga tao. Sa lahat po ng tao sa buong mundo, palagay po tayo ang pinaka-accommodating. Tumatanggap po tayo, tinatanggap po natin sa ating mga bahay, kahit na sino dumadaan doon. Okay? Abay, para pong parang gumagawa po tayo ng isang sitwasyon dito na para bang nawala na po sa ating lipunan yung gano'n. Okay? For example po, halimbawa, meron nga tayong halimbawa, hindi naman karapat-dapat iboto, binoboto pa rin natin. Meron namang mga gumawa ng po ano, pero binibigyan natin po sila, nasa poder pa rin sila. Ibig sabihin, tayo po ay mga Pilipinong maganda ang kalooban. Kung ilalagay po natin itong bill na ito, para bang sinisira natin ang magandang kalooban natin, binibigyan natin ng pagkakataon ng iba. No? Kung halimbawa parang siguro naunawaan niyo yung aking ine-express, no? Siguro gamitin po natin yung magandang kalooban natin. Mas ituro po natin yan. For example, ako po'y nagtuturo sa mga ilang ahensya ng ating gobyerno ng values. Minsan naimbitahan ako sa mga malinis. Sa aking pagtuturo ng values, kinausap ko yung kanilang leader doon. Sabi ko, magtuturo ako ng values, pero I'm just curious. Ano ba mga gay dito? Sabi po sa akin ng kanilang leader, ay, Bishop, meron din po. Okay. So, maganda naman ako na ito ibig sabihin ang sinasabi ko lang po, naroon na po yun eh. Yung ating pagiging accommodating ay naroon. In fact, nanonood po ako ng television show ni Vice Ganda ng isang araw. Isipin niyo, restaurant yun. Wala naman nagpapapatay sa TV. Okay? Sa pagkasikat ni Vice Ganda, katanggap-tanggap na po lahat eh. So, palagi ko po talaga, tama na nasabihin ko na hindi na po kailangan ito. Sapat na po yung ating batas. And ika-apat po ay palagay ko yung sasangguli ako sa sinabi ni Antonio Reyes kanina. Kaya ina-adapt din po namin ang kanilang posisyon, pati po yung mga posisyon na nauna pati na si Pastor Peter Tanchi. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po. Hihingan din po namin kayo
Opo.
ng position paper together with the other group that
Yes.
you mentioned.
Yes. Gagawin po namin
Sana
yun.
po, ibigay ng dates din.
Opo.
Maraming salamat po, Bishop. So next, we would like to hear from Mr. Wilnor Papa of the Amnesty International Program Coordinator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ang Amnesty International po ay isang international human rights NGO. We work on internationally recognized human rights issues and concerns at meron po kaming presence sa more than 160 countries all over the world. Amnesty International fully supports the proposed law para protektahan ang hindi lamang ang well-defined na sabihin natin mga LGBT members ng LGBT community, pero lahat po nang nasa saklaw ng SOGI, pinatawag natin. Sa paniwala po namin, lahat ng siyam na 4 international human rights treaties, whether they're born directly or indirectly from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, ay nakabase sa prinsipyo ng equality at non-discrimination. Hindi dinedefine directly ang SOGI sa lahat ng mga treaties na to, pero ini-impress at ini-stress paulit-ulit sa kanyang mga preamble na lahat po ng individual ay may karapatan sa protection at equal recognition ng batas, regardless sa kanilang paniniwala, sa kanilang sex, gender, age, so on and so forth. At ito po mga batas na to ay nasasaklaw ng civil political rights, economic, social, cultural rights, karapatan ng mga kababaihan, karapatan ng mga kabataan, karapatan ng mga refugees, karapatan laban sa torture, karapatan ng mga migrante, at lahat ng acts of disappearances. Ang hinihingi po ng proposed law na ito ay hindi additional or special rights para sa mga members ng LGBT community. Ang hinihingi lang po nito ay yung pagkakaroon ng isang method o isang mekanismo para i-recognize at equally protect in law and in practice ang karapatan ng lahat ng mga marginalized. Hindi po ito naiiba sa nakalagay sa Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act. Hindi rin po ito naiiba sa Expanded Senior Citizens Act, na kung saan nakikita natin na kung merong hindi nare-recognize o hindi napapansin, merong pagkukulang, ay maaaring pumasok ang batas para siguraduhin mapoproteksyonan at mabibigyan pansin yung dapat na pinapansin at pinoproteksyonan. Bilang pagdagdag po sana, tulad din ng sinabi ng aking mga kaibigan sa LGBT community, para mas mapalakas po yung batas, sana magkaroon ng tinatawag nating parang prevention at education mechanisms and provision po sana yung batas, para mas fully makita natin yung aspeto ng respeto, protection at saka fulfillment at promotion ng karapatan ng mga members na napapalo po sa SOGIE. Sana po ay hindi pa abutin uli ng 100 taon, no, na para ma-recognize yung rights ng mga nasa LGBT community. Kasi it will be such a shame, as it is still a shame, that women, not just in the Philippines, but all over the world, are still fighting for their rights. No, hindi dito po sa Pilipinas, maaaring hindi ganoon, pero sa ibang parte ng mundo, pati yung mga kababaihan ay pinagpaglaban pa nila ang kanilang karapatan sa edukasyon at sa pagboto at para ma-recognize ng batas sa kanilang mga bansa. So again, in behalf of Amnesty International Philippines, at hindi ko na po pahabain, we fully support this proposal, and at the same time we'll be sending our position paper in the next hour po doon sa committee secretary po. Maraming salamat po doon.
May I also suggest or require you to please submit your formal position paper.
Salamat po.
Maraming salamat po. Makinig na rin po tayo kay Director Noreen Woods Gragasi of the Civil Service Commission.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for having us as a resource person. I represent the Civil Service Commission, and we're part of the technical working group that worked on this censorship bill. And we fully support this bill because as the premier human resource institution, we do not want discrimination to happen in the workplace. I'm technically short because we would want also to hear other people talk about their position. Thank you.
Thank you, and I hope you will still be with us in the PWG. Thank you. And now we will hear from Claire, Miss Claire, Attorney Claire Angeline Lumson, Women and Gender Institute of the Miriam College.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I'm from the Women and Gender Institute of the Miriam College. I'm also from the Development Alternatives with Women for a New Era, a feminist network of women in the Global South. I've earlier given a position paper signed by different LGBT groups in the Philippines, but for now I speak as Women and Gender Institute. At the outset, I'd like to manifest our intention to submit within a few days a written position paper specifically on the specific provisions of the proposed bill. But for now, allow us to express for the record the following. First, I would so like to say, do to others what you want them to do to you. That is the meaning of the law of Moses and the teaching of the prophets. That's from Jesus of Nazareth, Matthew 7:12. However, we are a secular state, and that our Constitution mandates the separation of church and state. And Congress, in a state body, is mandated to undertake a secular approach in the discussion in today's hearing. Thus, the Philippines, as a state, which is part of the United Nations,